I'm telling you guys, Dua Lipa really is that bitch. She's just released her sophomore LP, and my ears have been seduced. They've decided no other music exists. Her 2017 self-titled record definitely showed skill, but raw talent and posh, high-end equipment are just resources ultimately. You need more. And this thing kind of sidestepped developing a personality. It was pretty sterile, and while it could fit snugly into the background of trendy department stores, it just bounced off the ears a bit. But future nostalgia is a prime example of how, even concerning something as intentionally instantaneous as radio-friendly electropop, just the slightest bit of artistic vision can give everything a way more gratifying stick. The record's a level up for sure. Its world's more impactful, because for one, it has an explicitly defined concept, that being interstellar travel through different eras of pop. Her writing is on point. Obviously it's not verbose, but it feels considered, like she approached every track with a game plan, and that goes a long way. As does the imagery that she peppers in. Like, for example, levitating is the one moment that's straight up stuffed to the brim with it, and the whole space scene is so graphic and picturesque, it glows brilliantly in your mind. And one especially sharp detail in it is how she places glitter both in her eyes as she admires this guy, and in the sky around her as cosmic dust. I love that moment. Once again, the production is gussied up. It's expensive as bars of gold, or hard candy because it's also sweet as fuck. But I think the core instruments have a more memorable punch here than they did on self-titled too, and the vocal melodies have more of a zing to them, and the way that they're grouped together makes tracks feel stimulating the whole way through, which Levitating is a great example of. It starts with these ascending and descending stair-step patterns, then the more that it progresses, it starts to just feel like they're dynamically shooting off in all directions. Lipa's vocals are tonally clean, but they have such range and vigor to them. They feel so rejuvenating, like a cup of chilled juice. And the tracklist is full of contagious bangers you might hear coming out of a jukebox in an intergalactic nightclub, so it's definitely got the dance pop thing going on, but it also mixes in a bunch of other genres tastefully as a fruit salad does fruit. Of course, there's electropop in there, there's synth funk, there's French house. The bass lines on this record have such presence in every mix. They're so pudgy and rubbery, but they also have a crisp pop to them, and as they move, they leave behind this bold flash as if they'd been electrically charged. Of course, there's the aerial string sections on Don't Start Now and Love Again and Break My Heart, which feels soft as fleece in there. And you can find traces of the styles of different pop icons since the 80s, the whole spectrum in here, but most potently I think Kylie Minogue, Madonna. There's a point on Break My Heart that's so blatantly gaga it hurts, but those are still tucked in pretty tightly and can feel camouflaged by everything that makes the music work so well in 2020, and that's all you really need, ultimately. The first track on here is celebratory, but it's also determined. It's heated like she just got out of the studio and finished something she's really proud of, so now there's this fire in her eyes and she'll settle for nothing less than dominating and changing the game. Total conquest. She gives all of this a feminist undertone too, so what she says feels that much more empowering and weighty. And she gives the track a healthy dose of ego, but then it's also convincing because she's actively proving herself and literally unafraid to directly reference the production she's over, and it's done at prime time for shock value. The first moment it hits the ears of critics and listeners. It's really smart. It feels like she just threw us into this pool without letting us test the waters, but then we ended up refreshed and convinced. And she delivers the verses in this saucy chant that feels like she's just letting loose and messing around. The tight, funky guitar crumbles and descending synths toward the end have that same friskiness, and in the hook, the fact she starts to sing and the additional soft layer gives the track this surge of momentum, like she's running off and you can't keep up, and that's the whole point. Don't Start Now essentially follows a situation to where someone who never handled her emotions with much care now thinks that they can just use her at their convenience, even though whatever they had is now clearly dead, and it's about the satisfaction of being able to shoot them down. That moment it triggers where it's glaringly obvious how much she's evolved since then, and it's like, oh, how the tables have turned. Now I can call the shots, huh, motherfucker? Most of the other tracks are actively in relationships though, and it's as if they're in their budding stages, so not much is on the line yet, and she's approaching them like you would puppy love, with an ultra simple, innocent perspective, but confident in that decision to be fully swept up by them and invite in the risk. Like, Cool has this one line, "in control of what I do," and of course that's a very specific moment, but I think even just that small implication of security adds to how excited you can get over the dynamic, because it's convincing that they're both in a position to where it's wise. It's like, me, you, forward, let's go. And the keys on this track have this ultra satisfying finish. It's like maybe they have a hard outer shell, but they're silken at their core, or that has the surface of like peeled garlic or lima beans, but they move so weightlessly. It's like a gentle breeze to the face, neatly blowing your hair back. And the spongy synths and guitars nestled into levitating give it a similar feeling. It's like they're making you buoyant in the air. But while on tracks like this, she's just being a bit of a tease and batting her eyes and twirling her hair from a distance. There are moments like Physical about direct skin-on-skin contact, which are still peppy, but definitely more forceful. The lyrics and bass line on this track have this dark, carnal kick. I love the way that Hallucinate is exclusively about the physical essence of another human being, and their body heat and smell alone having the effect of a drug. It's such a specific detail to fixate on, but a vivid one. And I love how the entire topic of Pretty Please is the release of strain from the body and mind when you're distracted by a romantic situation, because that really can do more for your life than you think it can, so it doesn't need to get any more complex than that. Trickle Down My Spine is a line that I love on it, because I feel like if you're locked into the writing, you almost kind of imagine that literal poke to your nerve endings. And the track starts with this bass line surrounded by negative space, then snappy little instruments are piled on, and they kind of feel like blowouts to the surface. I especially love the sharp, silvery synths and the chopped chipmunk vocals that move with a clunk like a retro computer and almost feel like they're stretching out the tight production. Don't Start Now has a similar thing going on. And Good in Bed is what I like to call the enemies with benefits anthem. It shows the extent to which sexual attraction controls us, because it can be so rare. Even when someone's venomous, they're harming your life, because that in itself can enhance the experience and feed the fire, and you think because they're fulfilling you in one way, they're solving one problem in your life, that it's worth trying to save. So it's like you're in a very specific knot, and anyway, your judgment is kind of clouded, your gut instinct is probably wrong, and I think the snarl to her vocal delivery here fits how bitter and almost rancid the subject matter gets. I will say that this hook is a bit low effort, maybe on the periphery of fucking obnoxious, but to me it's just infectious enough that it goes down fine, but you could just as easily want to gag it up. And the closer is a bit unfortunate. I do appreciate the fact that Miss Lipa went to the effort to send this message, and I'm sure the sentiment is genuine, but the lyrics still feel like they're regurgitated off of some BuzzFeed article, and the contrast between that shallow phrasing and the melodramatic tiptoe to the instrumental and the grandiosity to the hook just makes it all fall kind of flat on its face. But honestly, otherwise, this record is pretty fucking seamless. It's definitely one of my favorite pop records of the year, so I would give it a spin if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching my review, and I'll see you in the next one.